Hi everybody, my name is Caitlin and you are watching Zombie Eats Books. So I'm going to talk about the rest of the books that I read in March. The first book that I'll talk about is Loving Sabotage by Amelie Nothomb. I'm not really sure how to say that. This is translated by Andrew Wilson and I absolutely loved this book. It's one of my favorite books of the year so far. So this is a story about a young girl who is brilliant and extremely unusual. She grows up in Belgium, or at least she's born there, and then her family moves to Japan, and then they move to China. And this book is about her experience in China. So she lives in a sort of walled off community where there are a lot of other children from other countries that live there as well. And this takes place in the 1970s. So this little girl, who is, like I said, very smart, absorbs the political climate of the places that she's been to and the political climate of the 1970s in China. And it's about the way that she processes it as a child and how she expresses it as a child. And it's also about how the other children process their environment and how it comes out in their play. It's about how this little girl falls in love with another little girl that comes to this community and what she tries to do to win her love. It's about identity and childhood, and it's flat out hilarious, and I think you should read it. I ended up picking another book up by this author. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. So this book is when the girl is older. By the way, both of these books very closely mirror the author's own life. This one is translated by Adriana Hunter, and it's about the period in her life when she's older, in her 20s, and she actually goes back to Japan to try to have a successful career there. And it's about the culture clash that she encounters there. And it's about gender and sexism and how women operate within the business area in Japan at this time, which should be, I guess, about 1990s. Yeah, it was really good. It was written really well. Again, it focuses on another woman in here that she becomes sort of entangled with. Not that she falls in love with this one, but she just has sort of an odd relationship with her, which you'll see what I mean when you read this. A little bit of dark humor in here as well, but not nearly as funny as Loving Sabotage. So Fear and Trembling. I don't think I said the title of this book yet, but I liked this. It was like a 4-star read for me as opposed to a 5-star, but really good, and I'm going to continue to read this author. So the next book that I read was The End We Start From by Megan Hunter. This is a book that I really liked. It was very poetic. It was written more like poetry than a novel. It's about a woman that is going through being a new mother, learning how to be a mother and what motherhood means to her in the midst of this great natural disaster, which is a flood in London. It's about identity, it's about motherhood, it's about family, and I think it was just told really beautifully. I'll show you what the text looks like here so you can see what I mean when I say it's written like poetry. It really is written like poetry. It's not a book that's going to explain a lot about what has happened in terms of the flood or why it happened or anything like that. It doesn't have any meaty sci-fi parts. It's just, you know, a natural disaster that happened and more of the human reaction to it than the cause or anything like that. If you like speculative fiction like that, if that's your jam, then I would definitely suggest this. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Last but not least, I also read Mouthful of Birds by Samantha Schweblin. This was translated by Megan McDowell. So Fever Dream was one of my favorite books of last year. I absolutely loved it. This, I think, was more of the same type of writing. It didn't have the tone of Fever Dream, just because it couldn't build the way that Fever Dream built in a novel form as opposed to the short story form. But it was still written really well. I like her writing. I think it's disturbing and dark and beautiful at the same time. I will, however, say that this collection of short stories doesn't really fit together. I feel like they went through her short stories, picked a bunch of them, and put them in a book together just to publish something almost, because I didn't feel like this was a cohesive collection. Having said that, I still really enjoy her writing. And I'll continue to read anything that she puts out. Of course, there were stories in here that I liked better than others, but I think they were all pretty up there for me. Just lacking in cohesiveness, I guess. So if you're willing to dive into a short story collection and treat it like the stories don't belong together, then I guess give this a try. If you really loved Fever Dream, give it a try. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars because I just love her writing. So that's everything I read. Let me know if you've read any of these and what you thought about them and what you're reading right now. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye.